Namaste, hello, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I'm your host Nagesh Deshpande, and we are changing a bit today. From today, we are bringing some more change, and then we are having a guest, Ankit, who was with us previously, where we discussed failure stories about Agile implementation. And then today, let's welcome Ankit.
Thank you, Nagesh. Thank you, Agile Exploration Hub, and many congratulations on 250 subscribers. I,
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, as I said, we are changing a little bit. So, I will speak in between in English, some Hindi, and I'll ask Ankit. So, Ankit, what are we going to discuss today?
so there's something that there are a few things that I'm working on, say case studies or proposals, but that all are around Kanban. So how about we talk about Kanban, and precisely I would like to call it Kanban beyond the boards.
Oh, that's interesting. Let's let's hear more from you. So, what are you bringing today for my audience?
So what I really want to talk about, or what maybe we can chat about very casually, is the common understanding of Kanban, or the common limitation of understanding around Kanban.
Hmm.
Some very different examples of where I have personally used Kanban, and some of the exploration that I have done with. So I can share some of those stories. I can talk about how it can be useful,
Hmm.
and then let's just go. Like you said, you're making it more casual, right? So let's just go see how this goes and where we reach.
Yeah, yeah. So, many of us worked on Scrum, and then we learned Scrum, and traditionally we worked in waterfall. You know, but where did this came from? Kanban. Where did it came from?
So Kanban obviously is not from IT. It has come from manufacturing. But interesting how you picked up, right? Like, for example, if I am being asked about Agile, usually if there's a person who's new to the world of Agile, they will ask me a question where they will try and compare it with Waterfall. And
Right.
I probably say that waterfall's not bad because agile is good, or waterfall's not bad at all. It's just two different approaches of how you would. And similarly, when we talk about, say, Kanban, or sometimes even XP or some other methods, right? People try and compare it with Scrum,
Right.
saying that, and they try to do a apple to apple comparison, saying, is Scrum good or is Kanban good? It doesn't go that
ऐ-
way.
या ऐसा
Not a
नहीं होता
comparison, right?
है.
So let's just say if I have to define Kanban, or if I have to simply like say a one liner of what it would mean, I'd probably say Kanban is what you use to manage work.
Hmm.
And that's about it. That would be my one liner. And I think that's also somewhere in the official guide. But very simply, if someone asks me who's very new to Kanban, I would say it's a method or an approach that you would use to
Hmm.
manage work.
Right. So when I started career, so way back, I used to think that Kanban only works for production support. Okay, because the only production support project that I work it was in Kanban. So
Right.
मेरा वैसा thought process बन गया था. And when I read about it, I came to know that okay, this is came from manufacturing. So what are the other misconceptions about this Kanban?
So, okay, interesting one. I was anyways going to bring out the production support, but let's even take a step back, right?
Hmm.
लोग Scrum use करते हैं, Scrum board use करते हैं, and it's not like judging or blaming people for anything, but it's the limitation of knowledge or awareness around Kanban. And even though it's been around for such a long time, फिर भी वो एक थोड़ा सा limitation है awareness को लेके. So for example, a lot of teams that I work with, they do Scrum,
Hmm.
and they use a Scrum board in Jira, which is nothing but a visual board,
Right.
which can also be called as Kanban cards or Kanban. People tell me we use Kanban in Scrum, Now, if you are an agile practitioner and if you've been around for some time, you would know the sentence is not logically correct, or it does not very much make sense if you have unless you have achieved in maturity जहाँ पे आप scrum कर रहे हो और उसके ऊपर kanban as a management method use कर रहे हो, different story. But in general that's not the case. So people tell
Right.
me that just because they are using that board, they tell me, or sometimes they would simply put a few things visually.
Hmm.
So very interestingly, sometime last year, and I did not do it like an official survey, but मैंने क्या किया, I reached out to a lot of people and I casually, while chatting with them,
Hmm.
I said, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word Kanban? Or
Okay.
what is the first thing that clicks when you say Kanban? So two things. One, the board, मतलब maximum लोगों ने बोला board. Two, लोगों ने बोला it's what a support team would use. So now that has become like a stigma. It has stuck. कि
Exactly.
या
Hmm.
तो मतलब, and I've asked this for like 50 people
Hmm.
from IT, not even like non-IT people or something. So around 50 people in IT, I've asked this. There's no survey, there's no poll, there's no question. In just like casual conversations, uh, cafeteria conversations, I just very casually asked, "What do you think of Kanban?" I was like, "हम क्या use करेंगे ना, हमारा support team नहीं है."
Hmm.
And again, it's not that they have a limitation in trying understanding, or there's not capability. It's just that awareness limited hai, because from a long time very few teams or very few people have used Kanban to its full capability or in a different context. So I mean, Kanban you can use to manage work, any
Right.
kind of work. And maybe if we have time later, I will share some examples. But if I have to just tell you at a very high level, I've used Kanban to help a small startup, which was a non-IT startup. It was a sweets manufacturing startup,
Hmm.
and the people they were not technology savvy, and I have helped them with a friend. I've helped them to manage their workflow or their business flow or their operations using Kanban, where they had a board, they had defined a flow, they had done things. I have case studies, and we've even conducted a workshop on using Kanban for product management, like how you would prioritize, estimate, things like that. So we've used Kanban there, and then there are workshops that we've done. And then, of course, there are my most recent encounter with Kanban, or my most recent implementation of Kanban, is a team which was working on a very super critical delivery. Uh, and they used Kanban, and funny enough, they did not even know they were using Kanban. So, but going a step back of what would click me if I hear the word Kanban, right? मेरे दिमाग में सबसे पहले दो चीजें आती है. One, workflow.
Hmm. Hmm.
Two, visualization.
Right.
That's where it will start. That everything gets visualized and everything comes back to flow. The policies, principles, you name it, service delivery, you name it, principles, everything that it does, at the end, it matters of how can you ensure that the flow is smoother,
Hmm.
it's faster, and then it keeps going, and then you keep improving it. So these are the two things that would hit me when I think of Kanban.
Great, great. Yeah, so आपने एक वर्ड यूज किया वर्क फ्लो. ओके. सो मेरा मैं एक्सपीरियंस में ये चेक करता हूँ कि व्हेन आई स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन अ प्रोजेक्ट, और लेट्स नॉट मेंशन इन द प्रोजेक्ट, अ प्रोसेस ऑफ थिंग आई स्टार्ट वर्किंग, आई ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड द वर्क फ्लो, हाउ थिंग्स फ्लो फ्रॉम वन एंड टू एंड, or I try to put it in a word that you walk the talk. You know, so whatever happening into your flow, you put it on a paper, align it, and see ki, are these dots are connected, where are the gaps, where you need the improvements. मैं ऐसे हमेशा सोचता रहता हूँ. तो ये चीजें कितनी इंपॉर्टेंट है, वर्क फ्लो को आइडेंटिफाई करना, उसको प्लान करके उसको मैनेज करना, एंड देन अगेन गोइंग वन स्टेप बिहाइंड टू बियॉन्ड दैट टू improve योर वर्क फ्लो.
So one of the reasons of why workflow exists in the whole Kanban principles guide or everything that they keep talking about workflow is because unless and until you note down the entire journey, right,
Hmm.
from a demand being generated, right, वहां से लेके till the customer gets value, if that entire process or sequence of steps, if it is not mapped correctly, then that's probably the first area where you would want to improve on because you wouldn't know.
Right.
Second, once you have everything visualized, you will be able to find out what are the bottlenecks or where your work is getting. Again, you are visualizing the flow. So
Right.
that's the other thing. And then if you look at one of the principles, which is gaining agreement on eventually improving things. So one of the ways you would do is you will continuously try and identify in the workflow of which what are your pain points, what are some of the wait times, what are like you call it in a value stream
Right.
measurement, right? What are the non-value adding steps? So that everything that you try to do there, they kind of become very easy for you when when you put it in the workflow. And then on the top of that, if you visualize, you will be able to point out once you start getting enough maturity, you will be able to let's target this area now. Then maybe in the next step, let's target this area. So in
Hmm.
every loop, you can also try and find one area of improvement or one constraint and get it done with. Move on to the next area.
Right.
So the first step is like you said, uh, it is very important to map it in the right way. Then second is when you visualize it, then you start looking for continuous improvement.
Right. So to our audience, आप जब भी नया प्रोजेक्ट स्टार्ट करते हो, कोई नई टीम में ज्वाइन करते हो, कोई नया ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ज्वाइन करते हो, पहले आइडेंटिफाई द वर्क फ्लो, लर्न अबाउट इट, स्टडी द वर्क फ्लो. That's the key thing. Spending time on other things can be done later on. If you join there, you start the project, you understand the workflow, the things will fall in the place. You will be able to relate, work much better. So day one, when your project starts, ask your seniors, show me the workflow. That's what I do.
Very, very, very much to the point, very useful. I remember I joined an organization new, and the very first day I went to the team that I was working with, and there was a senior project manager. So we got introduced, and I said, I have a question. He was very curious. He's like, yes, ask me. And मैंने उनको पूछा, what will happen if our team doesn't go to work for 2 days? So he was very curious. He's like, ये कैसा question है? What do you mean to ask? I'm like, I want to know what is that we are doing. How does it fit in the program? How does it fit in the overall organization? And if we
Right,
don't go to work for 2 days, will it make any difference? Because that is my job satisfaction, right? If I am doing something which will give me an impact, but then that was also a bottom up approach of asking uh, the flow that you just
right.
said. So that
Where do I fit? And
correct
if I remove that part, where is what will be the, um, will it be
impact
a
of it.
high impact of it? Will it cause any cascade or, cascading effect? Great, great point. So now moving on. So we did discussed about your definition of our generic definition of Kanban, some misconception, workflow. However, are there any use cases that you want to share with our audience?
Okay. So one of my recent or say comparatively recent experiences, I was asked to be with a team where they had to work on something super critical because if they missed anything out of let's just say that they had a system and they had number of tickets that they needed to fix, and this was all mostly compliance related work. So if they did not do it right or if they missed it,
Hmm.
the possible implications of this missing the delivery was either the systems would get frozen,
Hmm.
meaning the cab would not allow them to push changes, or the service would be a customer facing service would be impacted. And this was so critical that if it didn't happen, it would probably it was like a overall program level performance target. So if it
Ah,
didn't work out, it would also tie back to your annual assessments. So
Right.
from people, from organization, and from customer perspective, this was super critical. And the list of tickets or the list of items that they had to do came in like we're doing a PI planning, and it
Hmm.
came in on the last day of the PI planning saying that start this now, do it now, and the very last day. And that particular team who was supposed to do this, they already had their backlog planned for the PI. This was the last day, so they had backlog planned everything, and this just dropped in like a bomb.
Hmm.
And uh, I was being asked that you will have to probably go and work with this team. So see how do you want to do it. Now, one thing जो मुझे लगता है कि सबको बहुत commonly लगता होगा, if and this team was used to doing Scrum from a long time, तो
Okay.
उनको Scrum पता है. For some reasons, because there was so much changing और नया कुछ तो आया था, we did not know what to predict, not to predict, because there was a central team which was sending us all this list of items that needed to be fixed. And this was never done before. तो जो central team है, even they did
Hmm.
not have a process in place. So I thought for some time. I went into a room with this team, and I had decided I will not tell them that we are doing Kanban.
Acha.
I went
Hmm.
I went to the I went to the one or two stakeholders or key stakeholders who were overall accountable to answer if this thing fails. I told them this will not work out in the PI way, probably. This will also probably not work in the Scrum way.
Hmm.
I will do it in the Kanban way, and you give me priorities and let the team decide everything else. Like how let the engineering part be with the team,
Hmm.
and
Right.
we'll see how this goes. But if you want to start this today, let's just start, and we'll do it in a Kanban way. But I don't want to announce that we are using a new method. And the sole purpose of doing that was fear of change. Uh,
Agree.
I am very sure you will have your share of stories, fear of
Yes.
change,
Absolutely. Yes.
because this was also a distributed team. So if I started with an announcement that we will do it in a Kanban way or something, I would have probably had to spend a lot of time in explaining them what Kanban is.
Agree. Yes. Hmm.
And coincidentally, I also at that very and this was like a very I had like all the sequence of events that I'm sharing with you happened in half of a day,
Hmm.
because the backlog was very big and the time frame was very less, and things were moving like whenever we were talking in meetings. So I didn't want to take a lot of time and take those times in discussions. I wanted to get everyone briefed on, and we probably would start prioritizing and things like that. So I didn't announce because of fear of change. Because this team had like a mix of people. Some people were very expert, some people were very new, and gradually they had recently come to a Scrum maturity level जहाँ पे उनका Scrum थोड़ा सा predictably के साथ चल रहा था. Now, if I tell them I'm going to tell you a newer method, they would probably not like it.
Agree.
So, and of course, like how do we do things and changes and all that. So I sat with them. I said, we have got a urgent delivery to do, and this is what it is going to take. We will have to pick it up. There is no choice. This is something that has come to your team, and I'm going to be with you.
Hmm.
So I showed them the backlog. I told them we started with a Confluence. Now I created a table on Confluence which had one row for each item, which had
Hmm.
status, which had dates, which had assignees, and a section for comments. So in
Okay.
my head, I was trying to replicate the Jira board that we usually see into a Confluence table. But again, there was no correlation, no reference, not needed. I said we'll put this on Confluence. We'll prioritize. We agreed on some color codes. We agreed on the statuses that we would use. And of course, just to capture details and then for change management and everything, we had Jira tickets for it. But we said we'll pick from here, we'll start from here.
Hmm.
And we started the analysis on the same day. Like by end of the day, we picked two or three high items, which was then after 2 or 3 weeks, when we started delivering a few things, the complexity also started increasing because that central team that was sending us input to work on,
Hmm.
they were also discovering newer things. So new types of bugs and fixes were coming into place, analysis needed. So, and the team size was obviously limited. So then we said, okay, let's do this. Each developer will work on one implementation and one analysis.
Okay. Hmm.
At parallel, you will work on one implementation, and then also you will pick up a new thing which we have not done before. You will analyze and find a solution to it so that we can bring it to development. That's how we'll pick. And then we agreed that everything that has, so some of the items had due dates, some of them did not have due date. So we said we'll pick whatever is has a due date, because
Hmm.
if you miss the due date, system gets frozen and we
Right.
don't have to do it. So we'll pick a due date. Whichever has due date gets picked first. Okay. We agreed color codes for due date, non-due date. Then we said, okay, whichever has like customer impact, without due date, customer impact, we'll see which is impacting more number of systems. Will so we kind of agreed on a certain ways of working,
Right.
and everything was on that confluence. And then the first initial 2 3 weeks this went on. By second week, we started releasing a few things. Now there were more constraints because the number of release windows were limited. There were fixed change windows. You cannot do
Hmm.
like change windows always.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And so what we started doing is we started booking the change windows 2 weeks in advance, which no one else was doing.
Hmm.
हम जाके पहले ही बोल देते थे कि इसमें हमारा चेंज जाएगा. Now
जाएगा.
because our delivery was like overall organization level super critical, हमको वो allowed था, but we had to do it in advance and tell the release managers that we will do this on this particular date. So we
Hmm.
started backward planning, but we then it came to people or stakeholders were curious to know the progress. So we started with a very simple report. I started saying these are at the start of the month we had so much. Now the backlog has come down to this much. Red
Hmm.
itna kam ho gaya, green itna kam ho gaya, amber itna kam ho gaya. So that was the first report. Then as we went on, we agreed to a structured of working. That then we just like the release window was one of the constraints. People availability was constrained. So we
Right.
started mapping people availability with release windows. Then the other constraint that came in was the input aa raha tha was varying very much. There was just random information coming in, and sometimes it would not even match with what they had sent us last week versus what they are sending this week. मतलब
Okay.
पिछली बार अगर कुछ भेजा था जिसका ड्यू डेट एक हफ्ते बाद है, इस बार वो लिस्ट में है ही नहीं.
Hmm.
So it messed up our plan because we
Absolutely.
were on a
Yes.
super tight timeline. So what we started doing is we said we'll not rely on them. We'll do our own scans. ये लोग जो स्कैन करके भेज रहे हैं इनसे 2 दिन पहले हम ही कर लेंगे. So if you realize what we were doing is we were improving eventually. We were at each loop we were trying to find one constraint, चाहे release window है, people available. We were improving.
Hmm.
We were everything that we were getting stuck at. We were identifying that what is basically what is interrupting our flow.
Right.
Inputs नहीं आ रहे ठीक से. We will go and scan.
Right. So
Kanban.
डिपेंडेंसी भी एक निकलती जा रही है. प्लस योर वॉट एवर यू आर डूइंग यू आर इम्प्रूविंग ऑन इट.
Correct. And on that confluence, the very first thing on the top was input कहाँ से आ रहा है? What is that we do? How are we doing it? We cross that. We're not dependent on input anymore. We know our
राइट.
inventory of systems. We will go and fix everything. We will do scan. We will do
हम्म.
scan before them. We will go and fix them.
हम्म.
Similarly, we were also on the go. We were also starting to create agreements
हम्म.
that we'll do one implementation, one development. We'll pick the red ones first. So if you link all this back to Kanban, we had explicit policies, we had classes of service, we had uh, we started the very same day where we got something and we eventually formed a structure around it versus first forming a process and then trying to validate it and go nahi humne start kiya and we were improving it. So uh, if you link it back to Kanban,
हम्म.
after 6 months I told my team, what do you think about Kanban? They're like, that probably for the support team, right? I'm like, what you were doing for last 6 months is Kanban. And then I had like when we had some breather, I had a 2 hours workshop with them. I showed them the Kanban guide, and they couldn't believe. They were like literally laughing for 5 minutes because उनको बताया नहीं गया ना, and they were
एग्जैक्टली.
laughing at it. कि हमको नहीं
Right.
पता था, हम करते गए, एंड वी वर एक्चुअली फॉलोइंग अ मेथड वेरी डिलिजेंटली. सो एंड अगेन
Great.
इफ वी कम बैक टू द बियॉन्ड द बोर्ड्स पार्ट, यहाँ पे बोर्ड था ही नहीं.
Hmm.
If you look at it, the
Right.
things were visual, maybe not as visual as they should be, but board था ही नहीं.
Hmm.
Because फिर वो भी एक आ जाता है कि okay, who will manage the board, how do we move
Exactly.
the tickets here.
Right.
Here everything was happening naturally on the flow.
राइट. उसमें फिर रेसी मैट्रिक्स का भी कॉन्सेप्ट आ जाता है. बोर्ड अगर रहता तो कौन रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, कौन अकाउंटेबल है.
हाँ.
वो, हाँ, किसका रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अपडेट करने का. दैट विल कम. राइट.
And then
ग्रेट.
eventually we did reach to a Kanban board, because by then they realized that
हम्म.
उनके साथ क्या बोलते, थोड़ा सा चीटिंग हो गया. दे वर नॉट टोल्ड दैट दे वर फॉलोइंग अ मेथड. दे रियलाइज्ड, एंड इवेंचुअली व्हेन वी हैड सम ब्रीदर, वी had a board, then we started doing things on the board. Visually it was more, sometimes
हम्म.
being more useful and things like that, but they got into that practice. Eventually they were the only team across the program who never missed anything.
Awesome. Well done. Awesome. Good. नाइस नाइस. सो मूविंग आइट. सो दिस इज, ये तो आईटी का एग्जांपल हो गया. आईटी टीम एंड दे डूइंग डेवलपमेंट एंड टेस्टिंग एंड डेवलप रिलीजिंग द. But you also mentioned about your friend's shop, about sweet shop, or
Yeah.
confectionery making business, something like. So, do you have any other stories or examples where Kanban is used?
So this particular sweet, or let's say call it laddus, क्योंकि laddus ही थे, तो
हाँ, अच्छा.
um, laddu बनाते थे. And this was post COVID, where
अच्छा.
a lot of small businesses were starting up, क्योंकि और even during the COVID, कि लोगों के पास चीजें नहीं थी करने के लिए, they couldn't go to work and all. So someone I knew had started laddus making business, and they were doing it like a business. It was not limited to home. They
हम्म.
were starting to do proper branding, packaging, very systematic manufacturing. But the problem was they couldn't understand how would they run it efficiently, how would they
हम्म.
do things. They were doing it, but how to effectively manage it, ये सब चीजें नहीं हो रही थी. So we were talking and we said, let's do an experiment. Let's see if you can, कितना inventory बना के रखना was a question. How or when should we start? When should we deliver? What should we do? So we and I can share the videos and Miro boards for it. We
हम्म.
had a case study which we presented, I think 3 years ago in the Kanban India conference. So I did it with a friend. और हम लोगों ने क्या किया? We sat with the people who were doing this. They were like a team of 5, 6 people. We sat with them and we asked them, how do you do it? Like, just tell us all the steps that are involved and tell us all the roles that you have, as in who does what. Let's not even call it roles.
राइट.
आईटी के लोग नहीं थे, तो उनको बोला, आप आपके रोल मतलब कौन क्या करता है ये बताओ. कौन बनाता है, कौन प्रोक्योरमेंट करता है, कौन ये सब करता है, ये अब बताओ. वी विल सी. इफ वी स्टार्टेड पुटिंग, एंड वी मेड अ मीरो बोर्ड एंड वी स्टार्टेड पुटिंग एवरीथिंग ऑन द मीरो बोर्ड. एंड देन इवेंचुअली वी डिड द वर्कफ्लो फॉर देम.
हम्म.
What happens when they start preparing something? How do they take count of inventory? How do they know how much to cook, not cook, and things like that. And दूसरी तरफ order आता है तो क्या होता है? We put
हम्म.
all these on the Miro board, and eventually we came up with like a 5, 6 step process where um, how they were getting orders to how they were getting to deliver them, and उसमें बनाने का part process, and they were very keen on trying to make keep it as fresh as possible, so they did not want to hold
यस.
long inventory.
राइट.
So
राइट.
they were very strong on nutritional values, उनको वो compromise नहीं करना था.
राइट.
तो उनको वो मैनेज करना था. तो वी मेड अ बोर्ड एंड वी सेड ओके, आपका ये वाला ज्यादा. तो वी डिड लाइक so many rounds of calls with them. We talked to them, we explained them how Miro works. हमने उनको एक बोर्ड बना के दिया. फिर उन्होंने अपने, जहाँ पे they were doing the manufacturing, very small unit, वहाँ पे उन्होंने एक बड़ा व्हाइट बोर्ड लगाया और उसमें उन्होंने कॉलम्स बना के रखे कि ओके, ये इस मतलब दिस इज हाउ व्हाट यू नीड टू प्रोक्योर. दे हैड प्रॉपर लाइक टू डू प्रोग्रेस डन किया उन्होंने, और वो धीरे धीरे, इट टुक टाइम, बट वो उन्होंने फॉलो करना स्टार्ट किया.
हम्म.
सो इवेंचुअली दिस वाज नॉट फॉर देयर सॉफ्टवेयर सपोर्ट और समथिंग, दिस वाज जस्ट मैनेजिंग देयर ऑपरेशंस, जो अपना
हम्म.
डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस.
राइट.
बट उनको इवेंचुअली उनको समझ में आया कि हम हमें कितना इन्वेंट्री रखना है उस स्केल पे. या फिर हमारा स्केल बड़ा होगा तो हमको कैसे पता करना है कि कितना इन्वेंट्री होना चाहिए. हाउ डू वी ensure that we limit the time on shelf versus the time product goes to the customer. फिर
हम्म.
हमारा थोड़ा थोड़ा how they can also get in more with sales, हम कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं. How can people, if for example if someone who's doing packaging and logistics, if they get stuck, how can others come and help them.
हम्म.
So again, and very very strongly we tried, and हमने बहुत avoid किया. So the other person who I was doing with, we avoided using IT terms because they were not from IT. तो
एग्री.
हमने normally flow और ये sequence समझाया, regional languages, Hindi, English सब mix करके we were doing it. But they came to a place where they were able to see traction, they were able to see improvements, and they kind of got that systems view कि हमारा overall क्या चल रहा है operations
हम्म.
में. So then they were able to point out, अच्छा यहाँ पे block है, ये करना पड़ेगा, वहाँ पे यहाँ पे थोड़ा ज्यादा ध्यान देना पड़ेगा. So that's an interesting experience for me also. कि non IT में we tried to do something and it did bring some improvements or some changes over 6 months.
ग्रेट. ग्रेट स्टोरी. आई एब्सोल्युटली लव्ड इट. लड्डू कितने खाए आप?
तो आप मेरे को मिलोगे तो आपको पता चल ही जाएगा. Probably that point of time I was also one of the most repeated customers for them.
ठीक है. गुड. गुड वन. एंड वो तो हो गया. अभी ये डिस्कस कर लिया. और क्या है? सो अभी हम लोगों ने स्टार्ट में बात किया स्क्रम, वाटरफॉल वगैरह सब. सो दीज आर मेथड्स. एक्सपी हो गया. सो हाउ डिफरेंट these methods are from each other compared to Kanban. So अगर मैं जैसे मेरा largely I'm experiencing Scrum. Okay.
Okay.
I used not fully but in bits and pieces Kanban. I know the basic difference in how it will improve my Scrum implementation. But largely इसमें क्या difference है ये methods में इतना?
So more like a textbook definition, अगर हमको किसी को explain करना है या किसी को बताना है, I would probably say that Scrum is a little more prescriptive because
हम्म.
it gives structures and a little more guided version of what you should do, ways of working, approach for teams which are very new. तो वो एक फैक्टर है in terms of difference as compared to Kanban. Of course, Kanban has principles, values, everything like Scrum. Kanban has its own set of principles, but
Right.
Kanban, so we say that Scrum is immutable. मतलब अगर आप हर चीज वैसे ही कर रहे हो तो आप Scrum कर रहे हो, नहीं तो आप Scrum नहीं कर रहे हो.
हम्म.
Whereas Kanban says that there are Kanban maturity model which tells you that you are improving up the ladder of maturity when you are doing things. And one of the things which is very popular about Kanban is says that start where you are now.
हम्म.
अब जो अभी कर रहे हो उसी से कंटिन्यू करो, आप रीडिफाइन करने की कोशिश मत करो. सो डिपेंडिंग ऑन योर कॉन्टेक्स्ट, हाउ डू यू नीड टू यूज इट, हाउ matured your teams are, because either of the methods that you pick, eventually your teams should imbibe or inherit the values and principles that the method brings along. तभी आप उसमें और improve कर पाओगे. तभी आप uh, continuous improvement is common everywhere, right? So if you want to
Right.
walk the journey of continuous improvement, it will come with the demonstration of practical demonstration of values and principles. वो करने के लिए भी, so depending on if you need prescriptive, non prescriptive, or if you need something to start with जहाँ पे आप चीजें कर सकते हो. A lot of the teams struggle if, for example, if you have to apply, like I said, operations में. So again, it's not like Scrum नहीं use कर सकते हो. There are recruitment teams that use Scrum, but it's difficult to imagine it that way for a lot of people to use it. Again, Scrum
हम्म.
can be used anywhere as well, but
Right.
जहाँ पे लोग वो imagine नहीं कर पाते, वहाँ पे you can probably start with Kanban. And like anything, right? I said we've done a case study workshop and even product management में Kanban, because if you are aware, there is ये upstream Kanban and downstream Kanban.
Right.
So if you were to design a product and if you have like 10 things to do, और उसमें से आपको prioritize करके development side पे जाना है, so then there's something that you will use upstream Kanban, downstream Kanban, or people even have concepts like programmed Kanban. टीम लेवल कानबान, तो बहुत बहुत सारी चीजें हैं वहां पे भी। आप अप्लाई कहीं पे भी कर सकते हो। आई वुडेंट इवन से कंपेयर करो, बिकॉज मेथड ओनली गिव्स यू, इट ओनली enables you, और इट गिव्स यू अ स्ट्रक्चर एट द एंड ऑफ इट। आप कितना अच्छे से उसको फॉलो करके करोगे, हाउ सूनर योर टीम्स मैच्योर, हाउ मच लेवल ऑफ ओनरशिप डू दे डेमोन्स्ट्रेट, दिस विल मेक ऑल द डिफरेंस। फिर आप कुछ भी मत करो, आप कानबान मत करो, स्क्रम मत करो, लेट इट बी, राइट? Even
Hmm.
without defining things, people can still make all the difference. So
Right.
depending on the context, you can choose either Scrum, Kanban, anything else.
नाइस नाइस नाइस। सो अभी ये तो पता चल गया कि स्क्रम का सर्टिफिकेशन है, स्क्रम में सीख सकता हूँ, आई कैन लर्न, बट हाउ कैन आई लर्न मोर अबाउट कानबान एंड वेयर आई कैन लर्न?
Very interesting question, and I'm very glad that you asked. So, just like Scrum, you have, and we are only referring to Scrum because Scrum is marketed so much that it has become very common.
राइट।
So, there is a 19 or 20 page guide of Kanban on Kanban University. Kanban University website पे अगर आप जाओगे और just search Kanban guide, it is there to download. I think 17 pages or 20 pages, and it very nicely in those 20 pages captures um, what Kanban is, what are the principles, what are the values, and it's something that anyone and everyone can understand. It's not necessary that you need to be an agile practitioner to understand Kanban.
या।
What they have also done beautifully is in that 20-page guide, they've got this one picture which they called as Kanban. So usme they have explained Kanban with a simple traffic management scenario where everything is a picture, and they've explained it of how you will use policies, how you will use commitment point, how you will use classes of service, how you either commit to certain thing, how do you manage flow, how do you measure flow. तो ये सारी चीजें उन्होंने एक, so it sticks like an analogy to you when once you
हम्म।
look, एक बार आपने वो पढ़ लिया और वो पिक्चर देख लिया ना, you are never going to forget it. So I think that should be the starting point. Of course, go to Kanban University, look at the introduction and things, but do read that 20 page, and then if it's something that clicks your interest, again, Kanban has team level like practitioner certifications and courses. If you are someone who wishes to implement and wants to gain a little more knowledge, you can look at something called as Kanban Management Professional. It's a badge which comes when you do two certifications. One is Kanban System Design and Kanban System
सिस्टम
Improvement. Yeah.
इम्प्रूवमेंट्स या।
हाँ, तो जब आप ये दोनों करोगे, these both are individual certifications.
राइट।
आपको वो, you will get that as an achievement. But when you do both, you are also entitled Kanban Management Professional badge. And then from there, you can choose if you want to be a consultant or if you want to be a trainer. So there is
इवन
also a
कोच,
trainer license.
कानबान
हाँ,
कोच इज आल्सो देयर या।
correct. तो उसका भी फिर if you want to do that as a training, you can get yourself a license. You can मतलब it takes a certain part of journey, but that's like everywhere. जैसे आप प्रोफेशनल स्क्रम ट्रेनर बनोगे, आप एसपीसी बनोगे, आप you can also become a accredited Kanban trainer, which is a very highly valued achievement. तो वो करके भी कर सकते हो आप।
Absolutely. So much to do, so much, and interesting. Actually, Kanban is more, I found it very interesting, and you can do lot of things. So there is a, if you go to scrum.org, there is a certification where you do the Scrum with Kanban.
Yes.
So that's also you can do, where they have nicely, aligned both the practices together. They have then the mixture of both, and how can your Scrum implementation will improve with the help of Kanban. So some of the things are there. So yeah, that's pretty much, Ankit, that I have for today. You want to add anything?
Not really. I think we did cover a variety of topics of different examples and some real examples and how we can simply define. But like I said just like a moment ago, right? Kanban, Scrum, XP, probably anything. These are all only structures that enable you. It wouldn't, and I really wouldn't want to like sit back and compare and do a comparative analysis and all that.
Right.
Doesn't really help anyone. These are just enablers. If you use them right, any one of them would probably achieve results. And then when you mature, you would know if you need to do something or not need to do something. Of course, I would definitely ask all our audiences to go and read the Kanban guide because it's an interesting 20-page read. You would definitely get some value out of it. But at the end, these are all only enablers which put a structure or approach to how you would want to solve a problem. Eventually, you have to solve a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, to my audience now, hope you like the video. If you really enjoy this discussion, please like the video, share with your friends. And as Ankit suggested, download the Scrum Kanban guide, read it. If you have questions, add to the comment. You can reach out to Ankit or me, ask the questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Keep learning. And Ankit, thanks a lot once again for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much for having me here. It's always fun. I've been watching all the recent videos as well. So, hope this continues. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Ankit. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.